Hello, and welcome to Love Books. It's lovely to have so many of you here tonight. Thank you. Yes, Sven Axelrad is here as well. So welcome, Sven and the Red Cup, back to Love Books for the launch of his latest book, which is, of course, the Nicotine Gospel. And I have to say, I highly recommend this book, and it's not because he's just given me a bottle of monkey shoulder, which I did share with him. But Mila, hopefully tonight's going to go okay. But this book really is a wonderful mix of magic, of philosophy, of wonderful literary fiction, and of real life. And for those of you who are fans, this book is not in, is it Vivo or Vivo? In Vivo. This book is not in Vivo. The wonderful thing about reading Sven's books is that they're always surprising. There might be a sentence that surprises you. It might be an image. It might be a twist. But he has a very unique style, and he's a wonderful writer to have on the South African scene. As Michelle Magwood is quoted on the front of this book saying, he's one of the most original writers to come along in years. And it's true, and I think we really needed that, and it's fantastic to have him around. So welcome, Sven, and welcome back. And congratulations on book number 3. In case you don't know who Sven is, he's actually an accountant from Durban. But from following him on Instagram, we know that not only does he write, he draws, he can play a guitar, and he has a Yorkie that he misses. And he also has a wife who's actually here tonight. But anyway, he's written 2 other books, both set in the fictional town of Vivo, Buried Treasure and God's Pocket. Chatting to Sven tonight, we have the lovely, lovely Mila de Villers. Mila is actually like part of the furniture at Love Books, and we love having her around. Doesn't matter if it's the morning or the night time. In real life, she is the online books editor at the Sunday Times. Mila, it's lovely to have you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Kate.
Can I just stand here?
Really?
Yeah, it feels so formal to sit down. Okay.
I mean, sure, it's up to you. Your jaw, and you can stand if you want to. So, Sven, how's it?
Hey, how's it?
As promised, we're going to chat all things skyf and skryf tonight.
My Afrikaans, I'm from Durban, so can we speak English at least? You're like,
Noordbroe,
no, but okay.
how many skyven did you smoke while skryfing the Nicotine Gospel?
I think I understand the question. I taught myself to smoke for this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to this petrol station by my house, which is a setting in the novel. And I just said, can I have a pack of Camel, And they put the one down, and then I said, and the Marlboros as well, please. And I went through basically every cigarette in the whole of the place. They had the people that were working there, everyone was crowding around, like, how's this go? And I walked away with this giant plastic packet of cigarettes, and I smoked them all over a period of time.
In one fell swoop?
No,
okay,
that would have been the enemy, yeah. And I had an excuse, you know what I mean? Because smoking's bad, we all know this. But I'm writing a novel. It's a pretty great excuse, right? And my wife didn't like it very much, but she was just bought me a really pretty ashtray, yeah. And I smoked them all, and I didn't like the ones I thought I was going to like. And sorry, the whole reason of this, I don't know if anyone knows what my book's actually about, but it's these 2 boys grow up with their father, and their father, because of the loss of his wife, he can't make sense of the world anymore, the chaos. So he invents a new way to make sense of it, which is the Nicotine Gospel, which is basically like a religion / zodiac based on cigarettes. So you could tell a kind of person by what cigarettes they smoke. And I wanted to make that gospel myself, which is insane. It doesn't work. And I smoked all the cigarettes, and I basically didn't learn anything from smoking cigarettes. I learned nothing. I got really into it. I was checking out the filters. I was doing the whole thing. But what I did learn was suddenly talking to everybody outside a cafe, like us chatting just now outside, I'm relatively shy, and it's hard to walk up to strangers. And with a cigarette, it was easy. And I would suddenly just be like, hey, who gave you your first cigarette? And it's always some dodgy uncle or, there's laughter because you've got that dodgy uncle that gave you that cigarette. And then they talk about a first cigarette like a first love, and they're like, and they remember it. And it's such a lovely conversation. And that's when I started to learn about cigarettes through these people. And I actually started out just taking copious notes. Like I come home and just make my notebooks look like I'm a serial killer, just like little scratches everywhere, and that's how I came up with this Nicotine Gospel. Yeah.
I mean, what a method actor.
Yeah, basically.
Or menthol actor. Actually, you confessed to me that you didn't smoke the camels. You preferred popping them.
It's true. And how's the lingo? Hey? These kids these days. Yeah. It's so true. Like I really wanted to like Lucky Strikes because that's what the book's about. And I really didn't. And give me a menthol Chesterfield any day. Very happy. Yeah.
No, but you're in the vape and sape jewel now.
You weren't supposed to bring that up. Let's check.
Deal with it.
I'm vaping at the moment because I didn't want to smoke, but vaping's worse than smoking. And the characters in my book would completely disown me if they knew I was vaping. Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
Sven, clear that the smoker's throat of yours, because I would like you to read a passage, i.e. the first paragraph of the book, yes, on page 11.
Don't you love it when people just spring it on you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Would you like me to hold the mic?
No, I got it. So how much?
Just the first paragraph.
Just the first paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's called Divine Parenthesis. And it says, the men in my family were known as the lucky boys, but not because good things happened to us. We were the lucky boys because my brother and I were brought up to measure all things, and I do mean all things, by a pack of cigarettes.
Now, read this quote for me, please. Or everyone, at least.
My dad believed... Yeah, okay. My dad believed that you could tell everything worth knowing about a person by what cigarette they smoked. He taught this to my brother and me when we were only kids. That's how all of this started in 1987 with a bolt of lightning and a pack of Lucky Strikes.
Okay, so these lucky boys, this trio. Sven, who are they at their core?
Jeez, these hard questions.
Hardcore?
Yeah. Just the characters you want me to...
Just the three. That's those three dudes.
Yeah, so the three dudes. The heart of this book is a brother relationship. And it's the two boys are Nathan's the older brother and Danny, first of all, these guys on the cover, it's me and my brother when we were little kids. And although nothing in this book happened to me, the events, a lot of the stuff is very personal and real to me, and to see my big brother on here is amazing. So Nathan's the older brother, he's the one telling the story, which was a little bit of a switch around because I'm the younger brother of the two. And Nathan, he's trying to learn the gospel. He's like very conscientious. He overthinks everything, and he's not very good at it. He's got a scientific, engineer's brain, which my brother does, and none of this sort of mystical cigarette nonsense makes any sense to him. But he's trying his best because that's how you relate to your dad. And the younger brother, Danny, is a bit wilder. He goes off the rails a bit, but he's instinctually good at the stuff. He feels it in his gut, and he can just tell you, Pall Mall cigarettes, and he's got an instinctual understanding of it, And the dad is his name's Esmond. He's a famous writer. He's written one famous novel, and which is the Great South African Novel, and he's a bit of an eccentric character. He's come up with this gospel, and the only time he really pays his kids any attention is when he's teaching them about cigarettes. I actually someone asked me the other day why I use the name Muesli.
I was intrigued as well. I mean, it's per Neutro trademarked. Why go with muesli?
Yeah, well, muesli, the reason is it's funny that how life creeps into your books, because my brother and I used to hang out outside our house. There was a time that we didn't like going home very much, and we would hang out on the street. And there was a house down the road. I'm guessing the people sold muesli because it just on the gate, it just had a big sign that said muesli. And I know that now, but as a kid, I was like, that's their name. They're the mueslis. They live down there, you know? And it just stuck with me. You know?
Nice, Sven.
Yeah.
So now, the F word, philosophie.
I'm not sure that's right. Yeah.
P word just didn't sound right, okay?
Yeah.
I would like you to elaborate on Nathan's deeply philosophical approach to the following 3 F words. Fate, family, fatherhood.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Nathan's battling with all of these things. Like fate is almost like hunting my characters down a little bit. Their mother's killed by a lightning strike, and they're sort of obsessed with lightning. And this book's set in Durban, so which was fascinating for me to write. And is anyone from Durban here or spend any time? Nick, I was here for a book launch for Nick, who's over there, and I stood here while he was talking, and he just tore Durban to pieces. Nick, it was terrible of you. I'm here to tell you that Durban's not so bad. Durban's sort of falling apart, but it's charmingly falling apart, and I think I call it the crumbling city of dreams, and it really is like a fun setting for a novel. Thunderstorms every afternoon, lightning strikes. It's sort of a gothically dangerous place, and the boys feel sort of hunted by lightning. What was the second? Family and
Family. Second F word.
So Nate in this book, Nate is he's not good at the gospel, so he's trying to figure out another way to see the world that makes sense. He spends half his time in therapy, and because he's just in the beginning of the novel, page 1, he finds out he's going to be a father, and now he's trying to deal with what that means to him. He's got this kind of messed up childhood himself, and he's trying to figure it out. But the gospel's not good enough, so he's trying to figure it out through philosophy, through science, and I kind of try to use that. I don't know, like I have faith. A lot of us do, but I'm not very good at it. And so I try to give it up. I've tried to not have faith, and I'm not very good at that either. So it's sort of left me in the middle somewhere.
What do you define as faith?
Oh, geez, like you're really asking me the hard questions. Yeah.
No, I'm curious.
We were talking about a book, Well, this is interesting. Actually, I say this a lot about my book stuff. Is that I really don't have any answers for you about life or anything or what happened to me in my life. I got a lot of questions, and I think the book is asking a lot of these questions. And what I find is through this interaction, and it's nice to see you, through this interaction and through all of these things, is we ask the questions together, and I find that's a lot more helpful than telling you what I think faith is. I guess I've always been prone to movie thinking, a little bit of magical thinking, and I think faith is a way of seeing the world is full of like facts. Right, and you can read nonfiction, that's fine, but it's not enough. Like the facts don't quite explain what it's like to be alive, because there's some extra little tweaky magic thing that happens when you're listening to music with the window down, and the facts aren't good enough to explain that. And I think faith jumps in there and starts to play a part.
So very Nate of him.
Yeah.
But what does Espen consider fatherhood to be?
I grew up, first of all, this is a very personal book to me, and I never know what I'm going to say. This is like the first week I've been talking about it to anyone. So like if I drop some heavy info about my family, just don't tell anyone, I grew up without my dad around. My parents got divorced when I was born, really. And I stayed at his house on the weekends until I was about 7, and then I didn't see him again for 10 years, or something like that. And so I'm writing a father character here who is there. He's living in the house with his kids, but he's not quite there. He's distracted. He's doing other things. Saying that my dad's a wonderful person, and he's very philosophical. He used to work for the UN, and he's a translator. Got such a cool voice. Like if anyone ever read this audiobook, I would love my dad to do it. But I didn't grow up with him, and I'm trying to understand. So his presence, he doesn't really think he hasn't thought out what fatherhood should be. He's communicating with his boys the best he can, and the boys are doing their best to communicate with him. So it's not a completely broken situation, which I find in life as well. Everyone, when you really chat to everyone about their personal stories, they're all doing their best. Just sometimes your best isn't good enough, and Esben's making a lot of mistakes, but he's trying,
I feel like a mistake Esben, maybe not on purpose, makes is by not realizing that he does start seeing this woman, Margot, and the boys dub her Margot Merlot because of her propensity for vino. But she physically abuses both Nathan and Danny.
Yeah.
And Esben is either cognizant and ignoring it, chooses to ignore it.
Yeah.
Or is he truly cognizant thereof?
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting to the part I don't know if I should tell you. Yes and no, I don't know. I grew up in that situation. So my brother and I, my mom was, it's all the facts are different in my real life, but my mom was dating a man who was highly abusive. And he used to, hit my brother and I and my mom as well. And then when we stayed at my dad's house on the weekends, he was dating someone that also used to hit us. And my parents are good people. They were young when they got married. They were both still getting through university. Like, it's a crazy situation. And I don't know the time. I don't remember a lot of this as well, but I don't know the time gap there where they didn't notice what was going on. And when they did notice, it stopped, But so Esben's in that gap for me where he's there and he's not terrible, but I just don't know how it actually happened and went on for so long. And there's some very, I don't know if you've seen it, but the book's dedicated to my big brother, and this is where I stop myself from crying. I just love my brother so much. Like, there were moments that happened in this book as well where. Except it's the brother roles flipped in the books, but where my brother, me at this age, there's the two of us there, and I was staying at my dad's girlfriend's place or whatever, and in the bathroom, and my brother sort of stood in front of me and was like, no, and stood up for us, and he came home with a black eye, Sorry, this is really heavy, but the book's not entirely heavy. There's lots of fun and play as well, but it's very real to me, and I don't understand how that actually does happen.
Yep.
But it does.
Sven, I'll move on to a lighter aspect literally shortly, but I do actually want to ask, during that period where both Nathan and Danny were subjected to this physical violence, what did brotherhood mean to them?
Well, that's the beautiful thing, and I think the thing to remember with the book's narrated by the boys, and while you're going through it, they don't see it. Like, when you're a kid and you're in a dark situation, it's just normal to you. You don't know that the world is another way, and kids are amazing. They're just acclimatized to stuff, and they call it the war, World War Margot Merlot, and they're part of the war. They're trying to annoy her, and they do a lot of funny stuff to sort of make it through. And it's just normal to them. And for a lot of my life, it was just normal as well. And there's a scene in the novel where Nate tells his wife about his childhood, and she burst into tears, and they have to leave a restaurant. And that happened to me. I mean, Shannon and I were in Sri Lanka, and we're sitting on the beach, the waves washing over your feet, and it was happy hour, we're drinking gin and tonics, and we're just facing the ocean. And I just started to tell Shan about my childhood, very casually, this happened and we're this big. And I looked over at her, and she was just tears streaming down her face. Makes me cry up. Which is a gift, and it's a lovely thing to find someone that can care for you. But it's such a strange thing to me, because I didn't think I was telling a sad story. I just thought I was telling a story, like the boys do. They're just telling you their story, What was your question? Yeah,
you've answered. It's okay. Brotherhood.
So because it's it's dark times, but it's not dark for the boys. What you find often as well, and it's a lovely thing with storytelling, is that darkness. Sorry, Shane, I love you. Darkness is a beautiful contrast for the light, and you put up a dark background, and all of a sudden brotherhood shines, and love shines, and courage. cry. And I love that about it. And I did this. Don't worry about the tears. I do this all the time. I joke. I say I used to just cry in the shower like a normal guy, And these days I only cry in front of rooms of whole people,
Yes, mask least frag. Let's go.
Geez, So these. What the darkness also does is bind people together. You grow up in perfect circumstances. Everybody just goes their own way because they don't need each other. But my brother and I, and my baby sister when she was born, we're a tight crew, and we still are to this day because of that. I almost want to thank those people for what happened because of what I have now. And I mean, that guy that my mom dated, he ended up in prison. I found out years later. He deserved it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's the real deal. But the love and the closeness, and with my mom particularly as well, is amazing. Yeah.
So you're discussing dark quite a lot now, but light plays such a big role throughout the entire novel in various manifestations. Like you have angel-esque apparitions, you have lightning, you have the act of lighting a cigarette. Talk me through this contrast between light and dark.
Yeah, I mean, we just got into it, but I wrote a song once, which I will never sing for you.
You've cried, now sing.
Yeah, like a dancing bear, what's next? Where I say it's the last match is the one that burns bright, and it's quite true, right? Like that last one that you really need, and you kind of the fingers are shaking with it, okay, and it burns bright. I don't know what to tell you about the light. It's so much light comes from the darkness. Like even my dad, who I have a very distant relationship from growing up, in my later life, the lightness is writing itself. And the thing that brought us together were these books. My dad loves language. He's just translator, and we were always in contact. He's, my dad's a good guy, and I sent him my first book that I ever wrote, and I was like, Dad, I think I want to be a writer, and he didn't say, oh, you're not good enough yet or nothing. He read that the first one's really bad as well. It's nothing that's been published. It was long before that, and I showed it to him, and he worked through the whole thing with me, every line, and because of that, you start talking about, because you're talking about a novel, you're talking about very intimate things inside of a novel, and all of a sudden this relationship built with my dad through novels. And the thing I love about it is that it's always surprising. Life is another song, the world is dark and the night is long, but we could use a few laughs and a couple of songs. And why do I cry so much? And the thing with light is it's surprising. If anyone's in a bit of darkness now, like the lovely thing about being alive is it's full of possibilities. Half of them terrible, half of them wonderful, and you've got no idea which one's coming next, and it's a lot of fun to be alive. Yeah.
So, moths are drawn to light, immensely so. So as I was reading this book, I noticed the absence of mammals, especially dogs. And dogs play such a huge role in both Buried Treasure and God's Pocket. Yeah. You yourself are a dog lover of note. Mm-hmm. Buried Treasure was co-dedicated, other than Shannon, to your blind Yorkie, Zoe. Yet here, you give us moths. Like, why the lack of dogs and lank moths?
Yeah. Because I always get literature-based tattoos after I finish a book, and I've got dog already, so I needed to get something else, I think, in this one, there's one dog. He's just the neighbor's dog, and the dogs get an honorable mention. Another thing is I've vowed to any God that you believe in that I will never kill another dog in the book ever again, and that's a promise I'm going to keep. And this time with moths, basically the dad starts sitting on the porch smoking cigarettes. That's how he comes up with the gospel. And he sits beneath a dull light, and one or two moths start buzzing around it. And if you live in Durban, it's not moths, it's flying ants, right? Like your whole floor is covered in them. And for me, those slowly there's one, there's two, you know, and it's the idea of madness or chaos coming, mental chaos coming to you, and until they slowly start to revolve, and they're always around him. So in the book, I use it as a sort of analogy or metaphor for chaotic thinking, whereas the lizards and geckos that are on the wall are sort of the other way around. They're calm. They're reasonable, and you'll see it when you're reading the book. Now that I've told you, you'll notice that throughout the novel, this idea of chaos. And Nate's always worried. He always looks up when there's a light just to make sure that there's no moths circling his own head. You know, yeah.
I mean, other things are circling heads. You do, like angels, e.g. You do include quite a number of religious imagery throughout.
Yeah.
The book's title contains the word gospel, yet it isn't scripture. Rest assured. Sven, I know genre can be a bit of a fickle mistress, but like if you, as the author who is present, could ascribe a genre of sorts to the Nicotine Gospel, what would it be?
I feel like, I don't know if any of you have read Shabnam Khan.
Last Life of Apple Nazil, yes.
What a book. What a lovely person as well. But she's in Durbs with me, and it's a very Durban book, and it's a very Gothic novel, right? Gothic being like, there's an old house, usually a fire in some point of it, some family saga that goes into the past. And I said this to a writer the other day. I'm going to name him. I said it to Justin Fox the other day, and he was like, no, it can't be Gothic because it's Durban's too sunny to be Gothic.
Read Mary Shelley.
Yeah. I just told him that he was, I mean, this is like an award-winning journalist, right? I just told him he's wrong. You know, I was like, no, Justin, you don't know what you're talking about. And I've like dropped him, thrown him under the bus twice now and these things. But I'm calling it's magical realism, for sure, which isn't crazy magic. It's realism with that thing I was telling you about earlier, with that feeling you get when the window's down, like something that it just explains life a little bit more than physical things you see around you. So I'm going to call it Durban Gothic, and
okay,
it's brand
Brad,
new. There's 2 books in Durban Gothic. I'm one of them. Shabnam's the other one. We're starting something new here. We're putting Durban back on the map. You know,
go for it.
Yeah.
Lankef Brew, hoi. But can it also be read as an homage to sorts to Durbs Brew?
Yeah. I've got a strange relationship with Durban. And sorry, just you were saying earlier about the religious imagery and that's a big part of Durban Gothic. You know, it's because Gothic originated in the American South, right? So there was a lot of sort of deep, you know, Presbyterian or Methodist imagery in it. And I grew up in the church as well. You know, when I came to South Africa, not the first 7 years of my life, but when I came here, I lived with my gran, who was like a very eccentric and lovely lady. And we moved into her house when we came here because we had no money and we basically escaped New Zealand and that dark situation. And my gran would, every morning before school, and this is like primary school, she would just take us to Addington Beach and we would all swim at Addington Beach. You know, my gran, in my head, she was even like super old back then. And she had that like little cap on to keep her hair dry. And we'd just bob in the water. And then I'd go to school like with salt on my body and that. And again, I just thought that was normal, you know, like, and my gran smoked like a chimney. She had like an old Jetta sheepskin seats. And it's hot in Durban, so the windows up, aircon pumping, and just smoking. And like we would get the whole car was like just smoke, and we'd get to school and just stink of smoke. And I wonder sometimes, you never know where ideas come from, like who knows? But I wonder sometimes if a bit of that got into me because I was introduced to church and cigarettes at exactly the same time. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Gwai.
Pretty much, yeah. Holy smoke hovering over.
Holy smokes, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, before...
And then, sorry, in no ways is this blasphemous as well, by the way. I have deep respect for religion and that I've invented a completely different one to look at faith, but it's not taking a knock at the church or anything like that. The church is great, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to agree with me. It's full of good people. Yeah. As as every room is full of good people. Like it's anyway, carry on. I feel like we're stumbling into something I don't need to talk about.
Which is why I'm on my last question now before I open up to the audience. So, Sven, you now enjoyed a Marlboro Beyond Blue with me outside, i.e. a menthol.
Yeah.
What would Esben have to say about that?
There's no problem with what you smoke. It's fine. As long as it's not like grape flavored something, like that. Esben doesn't mind.
I.e. your vape.
Like my vape. Honestly, he wouldn't even look at me. He cares how you lit it. Your light is fine. It wasn't a fancy lighter.
No.
I actually really did make up the gospel, and it doesn't work very often. I'll give you that, but once or twice it does. Like not with menthol Marlboros, but I met someone. We were at that party recently, New Year's Eve, and someone was smoking outside, and they had a Stavy Blue, and I was like, "Oh, you're from PE?" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh no, I've invented a religion based on cigarettes," and like you could see everyone like sort of talking, like maybe this guy's like David Blaine here, with his cigarette thing. I actually really like to find out. I mean, who here has smoked before or is currently smoking? Yeah, it's like a short little just first cigarettes. Shout it out. Which one? Blues. Okay. Marlboros. And Estrada, I heard that. Name and shame. Interesting. Okay, I'll give you a prediction later what it means. That one means you're an award-winning author that's probably going to buy a desk with your prize money.
Start smoking again, Sven.
Yeah.
Actively, properly. A Marlboro for a Malnai.
Yeah.
Okay, so Esben would have no qualms with that whatsoever. But your vape, though, hide that for life.
Honestly, well, when Esben's talking about this stuff, it's in 2011, so vapes went around, so I didn't have to deal with that. But definitely not. And I did actually promise that when I get home from Johannesburg in 2 days, I'm just going to throw it in the bin. So I'm done vaping until September when I'm on another book tour, in which case I vape again. Yeah. I wrote a book about cigarettes. I have to you can let me smoke for 1 year, just 1 year, Yeah.
You may.
Okay.
Put the lit in literature, honestly.
Yeah. She's got them all, hey? Wow.
Okay, Oz, who has questions?
Does anyone have?
Thank you.
Good evening. Very, very interesting conversation. So I have two questions for you, Sven.
Yeah.
One is about your influences in your writing, particularly cinematic, because just listening to that first paragraph and a lot of the stuff that you've said, it sounds like when you're watching a film and it's told in the first person narrative where the protagonist is talking about his life or their life. So I can definitely see that you're drawing on that and translating it into literature. And then the other more practical question is, what does your day-to-day writing regimen look like? You've already touched on your interesting method acting as writing.
Yeah.
But what's your day-to-day writing?
Those are good questions. Wow. If I hold the mic like this, it's so much louder. Those are great questions, and you picked up on it very well, because I read a lot. I try to read like 60, 65 books a year, and so I'm very influenced by a wide range of literature. I try not to read inside of a genre. I try to read across everything, which is probably why I have a bit of trouble defining my own genre, because it's widely influenced. But I'm absolutely in love with Latin American fiction and always have been. Give me, Alejandro Zambra or Garcia Marquez and Isabel Allende, Mariana Enriquez. These people are phenomenal. But I'm trying to learn Spanish as well. I've got like a real love of the language and the people. One of my absolute goals is to be able to read a novel in Spanish at some point. I was in Cuba earlier this year and I got to practice my really bad Spanish on everyone. Yeah. No lo sé. Yeah, you're so close.
Lo siento.
There we go. So, but with movies, it's even wider. Like, I love all cinema. I'm obsessed with cinema. Like, I get a lot of inspiration from watching movies. I was always like that with music too. So give me music and cinema together, and all of a sudden I write exclusively with music on, and it probably gives you that same feeling in a movie where, like I said earlier, the window's down and you're driving your car. This is cool, right? But put a song on top of that and blur the lights a little bit as they're like coming past you, the street lights. Now you're in cinema, and I write like that. I have a playlist that I write to every day. One book has one playlist. It's carefully curated so that I get the same. I say I feel like a rat trained to get through a maze. As soon as I hear the music, I know the mood of the novel, and I'm ready to write. And that's a big part of my daily regimen. Just a little shout out. I've got, I was introduced as an accountant by Kate, but it's actually I make tampons for a living. I'm a tampon accountant, and I've got some of my fellow accountants at the back of the room with me as well, which means I'm not allowed to say anything bad about where I work. Also, I can't tell you that I, scarve off work and write during the day. It's very strict. I'm only inside my hours. You've heard me that. Before this job, Tanita, please. When I was working in an audit firm, I was so bored that during the day that I used to write emails to clients, and it would start off like, "Dear client," and then inside the email I would just start writing a short story, And I remember someone coming up to me one day, my boss, and being like, "That's a long email," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's a serious one, I don't do that anymore. I kept far too busy to do that now. So my writing regimen is I wake up early before work. Shan has told me I have to hug her before I get out of bed. That's like a very important part of the morning. I hug Shan. I scratch my dog's tummy. I don't say a word. It's important. I keep dead quiet. I go to the room, in my lounge, and I put the kettle on for a coffee, and I sit down and I open my laptop, and I know where I am because I was there yesterday. I go one page back from where I was. I work through that again. The music's on. I'm the rat in a maze already. And that first sip of coffee, that first song that comes on, is the same song every time. I'm ready to go, and I write for probably 45 minutes. I can't concentrate for long periods of time, so 45 minutes is good. And then by that time, Shan's up. I start making my lunch for work. I'm on the road to the factory, and that's every day. It's every day. On the weekends, that's at a cafe, not at home. I get out on the cafe and I do that, and I go swimming afterwards, which my really good, whenever I've got a problem in a plot, swimming is what gets it out. For some reason, when I'm swimming, your body's engaged and your mind drifts. It's like a dream. And all my plot problems get solved when I'm swimming. So, yeah.
Yeah, Oliver Sacks could tell you that.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm highly secretive about music. So I'll tell you one song. But it doesn't matter what I tell you because it's not going to mean what it means to me. Like we've all got that one song, right? And my one song, you might listen to it and be like, "Oh no, this is not what the sound of the book is to you." But I will tell you that there's one track called "Ceremony" by New Order. They're an 80s band. They released it in 81, which is the year I was born, and it was the last song that Ian Curtis wrote when he was part of Joy Division, but he died before they could release it. And it's that song, for some reason, just that song from them, that just does it for me. It's on every single playlist, track one, side one, every single playlist, whether it's a cover or the original or me singing it quietly that I've recorded on a voice note. I always use that song. Yeah, the rest that comes after, it's just for me.
This is quite a Bob Dylan driven novel.
I love
lyrics wise.
They all are a little bit, and I love the Bob Dylan idea of creativity, which is you don't tell people how it's done. Bob is this mysterious character, right, that just rocks up and the music's there. He doesn't even know how it's done. You ask him and he's like, "Oh, I don't know. I can't do it again." I love this idea. I think I've been saying this for this last week, that you're not married to creativity, you're dating it, and it should retain a bit of mystery and a bit of romance. Married to something's even better, but not for this kind of thing. That's what that cup of coffee, that black coffee, a cigarette, a glass of wine, a whiskey, music, these are all romance items. And as you sit to write, you like romance yourself as well. You know, you deserve a bit of romance as a writer. Like, make it fun, make it cool, and just see where it goes. Do not follow some kind of, this is my advice, don't follow some BuzzFeed 7 ways to write a book, you know. Just sit down and write it, you know, like, and you're going to make 1,000 mistakes. And then when you do it again, you'll make 900 mistakes. And when you do it again, you'll make 800. And then you'll make 900 again the next time because you've made a whole bunch of new mistakes. But that's what's fun. The stuff's not perfect. The stuff is alive like you are. It's like it's just a life that you're creating, another life, you know. And you will not do a perfect job. My dad didn't do a perfect job as a kid bringing me up, but he did a wonderful job. Like, and writing's the same way, you know. Creativity is the same way. Whatever you do, if you make anything, you make, you bake, you bring up your own children, whatever it is, just do it with a little bit of style and a bit of music on. That's creativity, you know, and enjoy it. Yeah. Sorry, I just banged on for hours there. Yeah.
No, it's great. I have 2 questions for you as well, if you don't mind. So the first one is, I have not read the book. I've literally just bought it a half an hour ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know your personal life story. But you did mention that the book was really about Lucky Strike. So my question is, did you want to write about cigarettes and the nicotine gospel because of the Lucky Strike? Or did you just like, I want to write about an addiction, let's pick smoking, and then went and bought a whole bunch of packets of cigarettes?
I mean, I've just told you for like 10 minutes about how it's a complete mystery and I don't understand any
You
of it.
you really had no thought process around that.
Yeah, no, I do. You know, it's weird. Like the way that I work is, brings back to Annie's question about inspiration in movies and that. It is mysterious to me. But what I do is, I think I needed to write about my brother. I knew that. Okay, but I can't just approach something head on. My brain doesn't work like that. It works. It finds interest in weirdness, and we go into it. And I was very interested in cigarettes from movies. You know, I always loved the old Winona Ryder film Reality Bites. You know, it's like it's so cool. And Ethan Hawke's a great smoker. And I wanted to write about that. But I have no idea how the two come together. So I start researching stuff. I start watching all the movies. I watch the way people smoke. I watch the way Leonardo DiCaprio breathes out. And then it seems to go like between his mouth and his nose. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It's an amazing way to smoke. And I start looking at all these little things. And it feels to me like I'm collecting inspiration. And it collects in like a cloud above my head. And eventually at some point the cloud gets too full of stuff. And that's usually when my wife's like, I think you need to go talk to someone. Something's wrong with you. You know, like I become like obsessed with whatever it is, blues or Bob Dylan or something, you know. And at that moment, the cloud breaks and something comes out. And I don't always know what it's going to be. But different writers are good at different things. Some are good at plotting that stuff out up front. And that's great skill. I don't have it. I'm good at catching what's in front of me fast and putting it down. So as I sit to write that morning where I take that sip of coffee and I don't know what's going to happen, the second that first thing drops in my lap, that first sentence, I know what comes next. I just walk. There's no platform in front of me. I take a step and there's always something there. It hasn't happened yet where I've taken a step and there's not something there. You know?
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, and a little bit more of a personal one. You don't have to answer if you absolutely don't want to. But
yeah.
You mentioned that your brother and your family were quite tight knit.
Yeah.
Do you think the absence of your father for those 10 years, if he had not been absent, do you think your relationship with your siblings would have been different?
It's impossible to say that life doesn't exist, right? The divergent path. It's a very interesting question, and there's many points in my life. There's pivotal moments in your life where you wonder, if I'd gone this way or this way, what would have happened? But the truth is, you don't know, and it's one of the lovely things about life, actually, because you could wish things were different, but I can't wish that because of how my brother and I are. And also just to give a little shout out to my brother who has 3. I don't have any kids, but my brother's got 3 boys. He grew up the way I grew up. He's got no role model. There's nothing that he knew how to do, and he's the greatest dad. And it's cool being an uncle. I'm probably that dodgy uncle that gives the kids a cigarette. I just realized that now. I have never given them a cigarette.
Yet.
Yeah. But I'll fetch them from any party that they get in trouble. I'll never give them a hassle, And my brother and I sit around all the time, and we decide we've got these lists, and we're like, what movies do these kids need to watch so that they understand cinema? What music do they need to listen to? What books do they need to read? And we've got these long lists, and we work. And as they get to the right age, we start watching the stuff with them. And it's such a glorious thing to watch history change. And these kids grow up in a way that I didn't grow up. The other night, we all sat around, this is like a week ago, just over, and we watched Back to the Future 1. And I realized watching this film that I'd modeled my whole life on Marty McFly. He dresses like
hence
this.
the look.
Yeah. He wants to play the guitar in a band. When his dad, I looked at Chen afterwards, I was like, I really have modeled it. And his dad finally stops being a loser and becomes a winner. It's because he's written a novel and it arrives in the post. And I was like, wow, this is really my whole life is on this.
So manifest Marty Fest.
Yeah, she's got them all. Eh?
So I have a question. I found you with God's Pocket. So that's the first of your books that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask how you as a writer, you've progressed from Buried Treasure until the Nicotine Gospel, because you can see it quite often. A lot of writers at some point in their life, they write a book that's a lot more personal to them and has a lot more personal influence from their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to know, how do you think you've progressed? And in each of these books, Buried Treasure, God's Pocket, and the Nicotine Gospel, what's if I were to, because I met you reading God's Pocket. So what do you think is that you would have met in Buried Treasure, God's Pocket, and then the Nicotine Gospel?
I mean, it's funny that you say progress. It's probably, regressed because they're out of order. The publication's out of order. I wrote Nicotine Gospel before I wrote Buried Treasure. But Buried Treasure was the first one that broke through, right? And I did write Buried Treasure, then God's Pocket. And then it was time to put out something. My publishers now trusted me. And I said, listen, I've got this other thing that means a lot to me. And I'm glad it worked out that way. Even just being able to choose the cover and stuff like that, because Penguin were great about it. They were just whatever you need, Sven, you just do your thing, But if you're asking me, what are you asking me? If how I would pitch them at you or what changed? Yeah, so Buried Treasure is my most, in terms of language and concept, my most beautiful novel. I think that there's such. Sometimes I read it and I'm like, who wrote this thing? It's really good, It doesn't. I don't think I could have redone it. It's something that and Buried Treasure changed my life. I mean, I was just an accountant making tampons, and no one knew I wrote books. And then for 10 years, like that, I never used to tell anyone. And then on my birthday, Catriona Ross, my patron saint of good news, phoned me and said, we're going to publish your novel, and it was Buried Treasure. And since then, it's felt like I've fallen through like a trapdoor. For me to sit in front of you guys and talk to you about books, and you're actually caring about what movies I watch, and it's crazy to me, absolutely crazy to me. So Buried Treasure changed my life. I was so excited when I wrote it. I knew I was onto something fun and cool for me. So I had a blast. Beautiful, philosophical. God's Pocket is my favorite novel. I love that book so much. It's about 5 friends growing up. The parents want them to become an accountant, the one guy, but he doesn't want to do it. It's you think this one's personal. They're all personal, And it's the most fun to me, and it really gets into my group of friends when I was a kid, And this idea of being young and in love, and I'm obsessed with breaking into swimming pools at night and swimming with your friends, and that kind of pops up in every novel. So I love that one the most. But then this one comes along, and it's a tribute to my big brother, who it's just I owe him so much in my life, and so it's the most heartfelt. No, that's not right. It's the least disguised. They're all so heartfelt. I cried my way through all of them. They are not because they're sad, just because they mean so much to me, But this is the closest to home, and for that reason, when I put it out, I almost, once I wrote it, it was like therapy, right? And I put it down, And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I got it out. And then having to come back to it later and then sit in front of you guys and actually say, you know, I used to be beat up when I was a kid. It's been really weird, and it's therapy again. Hard again, as hard as it was to put it down, and as freeing and lovely, because all the people I've met in this whole trapdoor that I've fallen through have mostly just been wonderful and kind people. Crazy people too, but like just wonderfully kind people. And I didn't know that this is me crying again. I didn't know that was out there for me. I thought I was just some guy who sat around in cafes in Durban and kept to himself, you know, and I've become like a different version of myself. I got my wife knows, and Andy, who's known me for years and years. Andy, we used to sit around in dinners and hypothetical questions, love them. And we were like, you know, what do you want? What's your biggest dream? And I was like, I want to be a writer, you know. And the first thing Andy said to me when she read Buried Treasure, when it finally came out, because I'd never showed them anything, she was so relieved that I was good at it. She was like, they were all like, go home afterwards and be like, maybe he's awful, you know what I mean? Like, we never want to read any of his stuff, you know.
Sven, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your tears as well.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I
I
can't
think
help
the
it,
world
yeah.
could benefit from far more people crying, period, especially men.
Yeah.
And no period, tampon, fun, heavy flow intended.
Yeah. Industry jokes are cool with me. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mila. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming
Thank
out.
you. Yeah. Braving.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to both of you for a wonderful conversation. Loved listening to you. Books are for sale up there. Sven, I'm going to ask you to